Okay, Chris speaks back with Brandon Moseley for our BCS State of Alabama podcast, and we got GOP PSC candidate here with us today, Sheriff Matt Gentry. So, Sheriff, how's the campaign going?
Good. It's busy. I've driven a little over 40,000 miles since June, so it ain't too bad.
That's a lot of traveling there. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you decide to get in the PSC race.
So of course, been in law enforcement 27 years, 12 years as a sheriff. Before that, I was in the Marine Corps, and so I announced in 24 that I was going to retire. And I had a lot of the citizens come up to me and say, Sheriff, we don't want you to retire. You've been in public service all your life. And I kind of thought about the way I was raised in Cullman County. My granddaddy was a farmer, raised sweet potatoes. My dad is a forester by trade, went to work for Drummond Coal Company in 78 and spent 24 years with them doing reclamation. And I said, you know what? The Public Service Commission is a position that no one knows anything about, but it's a position that touches every citizen in Alabama when you regulate Alabama Power, trucking companies, railroads, natural gas, the Port of Mobile, and as a sheriff, I deal with regulations a lot. And I said that's something that I can help Alabamians and stand a line for them.
Sheriff, for the public who don't know, how currently is the Public Service Commission structured?
So currently, there's three commissioners. There's a president, a place one, and place two. All three of those positions currently are statewide elections. So that means, just like me running for place one, means all citizens in Alabama can vote for me. So all 67 counties can vote for me in this election.
So, how's the new bill going to affect the PSC?
So the new bill, one creates a director of energy that will basically set the agenda and run the Public Service Commission. It will make it from 3 members to 7 members, with four members being appointed before July the 15th. So our election won't be even complete, and there's the creation of seven, with four being appointed in July to take office in January.
Um, we're about to elect a new governor. Why would the legislature let Kay Ivey pack the Public Service Commission before Tommy Tuberville or Doug Jones or whoever the people vote in? I mean, it's even won a primary.
Sure. I'm not for sure the motives behind it. You know, the that would be a good question to ask our legislators. And this is what I told the legislators when they were working on recreating this law. I said, number one, the appointment of four before July 15th, you're creating incumbents, and we're not even finishing our election. I said, I know since 1970, there's never been a law changing a position during the middle of an election. And so, you during the creation of these incumbents, I said, why don't, if you're going to make it seven to run by congressional districts, then why don't you let two run in 2 years statewide, two more run in 2 years statewide, and then by 2032, the Public Service Commission will be set in congressional districts. But I guess they didn't like that idea, so they just are doing four appointments in July.
So, after these appointments, are they going to be permanently for people appointed, or are they going to start running as their terms come up?
So under this new law, so four will be appointed before July the 15th. Two are supposed to run in 2 years, and then two more will run in 4 years, which goes back to why I made the suggestion. If they're going to be running anyway, instead of doing the appointments, let them run in 2 years. I mean, if you're going to make seven, let two run in 2 years and two more. That way, you're not establishing incumbents right off the bat.
As I understand this new law, which they rushed through real fast without giving public any time to look at what they were doing, um, you and the other placeholder, place one and place two, y'all are both running statewide.
Yes,
So
sir.
all the voters in the state get to decide whether or not we want Matt Gentry.
Yes.
But then in 4 years, when you run for reelection, or I mean, basically in January 1, instead of representing all of us, you'll just represent, I guess Congressional District 4, which is Robert Adderholt's district.
That is correct. But this is as I've been campaigning and across the state. Saturday I was in Vestavia and then went down to Autauga County and then to Coosa County. The one thing that I'm telling the citizens, and this is something that I believe in, no matter with this law change, you still represent Alabama, and I will be going across the state regardless if I'm just representing Congressional District 4, I'm still going to be going to Baldwin. I'm still going to be going to Crenshaw. I'm still going to be going to Mobile because that's the position I ran for and that's the way I believe. Even though once the law has changed, it would be Congressional District 4. I still believe as an elected official statewide, you represent the whole state.
So, do you know exactly what the energy secretary will be doing? Will it be like a president or overseer or
So, from what I've heard, they will set the agendas for the meetings. They'll put the things on there that will need to be voted on with very little input from the commission itself. That's one of the things that I think need to change in that. I think the commission, who are elected, not appointed, as far as the director of energy will be appointed. If you're elected, then you need to have the say so of what the voice of the people is.
So, as I understand the new law, the Secretary of Energy is going to be appointed. I guess the first one would be appointed by KIV. And then um, they serve at the leisure of the governor and can be replaced willy-nilly for any reason by the governor. And y'all, as the Public Service Commission, have no authority or say in that, or am I misunderstanding this?
That's from what I've read, and actually, the way I read the director of energy spot, it won't be appointed until January of 27. So you'll
Oh,
have
okay. So
four
the new
commissioners.
governor will get to pick the
Mhm.
secretary.
Yes. So you'll have four commissioners appointed in July, which is weird because they won't take office until January. And the other thing this law did was it extends the terms of the public service commissioners. So it makes it from a 4 year term to a 6 year term. And so, like in my position, would be running again in 2032 uh, in that. So,
So is this permanently all the terms once we do these first, couple elections, everything becomes 6-year terms from that point on?
yes, sir. From reading the law, that's the way they become after that.
do you think that Alabama Power was behind this because they thought their commissioners were going to lose and they're trying to ensure that they keep things their way?
There's a lot of speculation to why. I mean, of course, you had the first bill where they were doing the three appointed, and then the audio came out that went statewide. So, and then the next week, uh, this new bill dropped. So, there's a lot of speculation to why this done, which was, I've heard that myself, that they were pushing to change the law because of that.
Um, Changing the topics a little bit, the legislature had a bill to put a moratorium on solar farms, and that failed because of a technicality in the legislative process. So there is no moratorium now on solar farms.
Hmm.
What is your view on all these thousands and thousands of acres in Mobile, in Baldwin, in Montgomery, and other parts of the state being ate up by solar farms that don't produce, a drop of the power that we actually need?
Sure. So we'll just talk about Stockton, the solar farm in Stockton that the PSC approved in December of 25. Number one, I'm against taking 5,000 acres of farmland that we use to sustain our citizens in Alabama and turning it into a solar farm because number one, they've not done the research on the environmental hazards. All it takes is one hurricane, one tornado. They hit those solar panels, they start leaking into the ground. Then you might have, of course, 5,000 acres that are affected. But what's going to happen when they hit our streams and go onto other people's property? And so I'm against
What
taking
what
that
what
farmland. And
what happens when a tornado or a hurricane runs into a bunch of solar panels and all of a sudden it's raining glass down on us,
that's
50
right.
miles away?
That's right. Now, I'm pro, I'm a very constitutionally sound sheriff. And if an individual wants individual solar, if you want to put solar on your house, then I support you on putting solar on your house or your chicken houses or your farm. But I'm against taking away farmland and doing that because, again, they've not done the research. And this is the other question I asked is if it's which the solar panels are only good for 10 to 20 years, if it starts leaking into the ground, then who is responsible for the cleanup? Who's responsible for the environmental hazards? And nobody's been able to answer that question for me yet.
Sheriff, you think that this new commission that they will ever have open rate hearings?
To do it, you would have to have a vote of five of the commissioners. Reading that law, I think it's a vote of five to be able to request a rate hearing. One of the things that was brought up to me this morning, I had somebody call me from kind of north middle Alabama, and I was talking to them, and they had a question on the rate freeze. So there's under this new law, there's a 3-year rate freeze. The biggest question they had, well, if right now we're at the highest rates we've ever had, then we just froze those high rates for another 3 years. And that's Alabamians, as I've traveled the state, are mad about that. They're mad about the 4 appointments and they're mad about the rate freeze that keeps these rates high. And they would rather see a commission come in, evaluate it, and decrease rates, not keep the rates at the highest they've ever been.
We've seen Hadrian build the submarine plant up in Muscle Shoals. Boeing announced they're tripling production at their plant in Huntsville. Blue Origin is building rockets up in Huntsville. Eli Lilly has announced a massive pharmaceutical factory up in Huntsville. Um, TVA rates are like 40% less than Alabama power rates. Is there a coincidence that the hottest location for manufacturing is north of Alabama Power's territory? And is the rates having a role in this?
I do believe that the rates do have a role in it, and rates and recruitment, because these factories are coming in and these jobs that are being created. I mean, it's all about business, and in business you need balance, and that's really the job of the Public Service Commission, is to bring balance to our business owners and our citizens, and you do it so they're all very successful. I think you see that balance up there, and I think that's why you need change and transparency in the Public Service Commission, is to bring that balance. And we'll just talk about Alabama Power. Alabama Power, they have a lot of jobs, they have a huge workforce. You want them to be successful, but in their success, you got to have balance. You need commissioners that will come in and look at the rates and say, hey, look, we need to help our business owners, we need to help our citizens, we need to decrease the rate so we can have a better balance across the board.
Hey, Sheriff, I got a question for you, and you probably won't know the answer to it because I mean I can't find anybody that does. But like, Southern Company, Alabama Power, or Georgia Power, they're all up under it. But like, our our rates are 38% higher than Georgia's, and we have like a 13% rate of returns compared to 6.5% of the other ones. Do you have any idea why we're so much higher when we're all up under the same parent company?
I don't. That's a great question. Lord willing, if elected, I can get in there and research that to figure out, is it through legislation? Is it through some type of law that guarantees them that rate of return? Or what are we seeing? Is it an issue that's voted on by the Public Service Commission? But I think once I can get in there and get my hands on it and start looking, then I think we can come up with an answer and even maybe a solution to that. Because it's no different than when I was elected sheriff in 2015, or took office in 15, elected in 14. One of the things, we come in and I've got 170 employees. I run a jail of 440 inmates a day. We're answering 80,000 calls. But once I got in and started looking at the financials, I noticed that we were paying for cell phones that we didn't even use, which saved me about 12,000 a month. Over a year, that's 144,000 a year. So if you got good commissioners that get in there, we can look and see where change needs to be made. It's not just a rubber stamp. We can get in and work with the employees at the Public Service Commission and look for those positive changes to help Alabamians.
Could part of the answer to Christopher's question be that I was at the rodeo just like a month ago, and the
Mm-hmm.
rodeo in Montgomery was sponsored by Alabama Power? Every time I go to an Auburn football game, the game is sponsored as platinum sponsored by Power. I've
Mm-hmm.
been to Republican Party state executive committee meetings and the dinner beforehand, sponsored by Alabama Power. I mean, I'm not saying Alabama Power shouldn't be able to lobby the legislature, or they shouldn't be able to garner positive press by spending a lot of money advertising, even though they're a monopoly. But does Alabama Power, that maybe without even thinking about it, raise our rates to pay for their,
Mm-hmm.
image, promotion and their influence with the legislature and their influence with the press, honestly? Because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like constant commercials, and I mean, it's cool when they're sponsoring your baseball game or whatever, but that's money that's coming out of the ratepayers. The ratepayers are paying for all that.
Sure. That's a good question. And, I don't know what their budget is on advertising and those type of things, but I would believe that the Public Service Commission would be able to get in and look and see what those budgets are as far as advertisement and sponsorships. Most organizations have a budget for those kind of things, but it's not an unlimited budget.
Sheriff, so I remember we was talking the other night. You was the only sheriff that went before the legislature to support constitutional carry. Is that correct?
Yes, I went, and of course that was a very hot topic when constitutional carry passed, and I went and spoke to the House committee of the reason I was for constitutional carry. There was other sheriffs that supported it, but I was the one that went before the House committee and spoke.
Um, it was a big issue at the time when they were passing constitutional carry that, it was going to negatively impact our sheriff's departments because y'all were going to sell a whole lot less concealed carry permits.
Mhm.
How has that bill affected your income for the permit sales?
You know, when it passed, of course, it hit all the sheriff's offices. You know, income. I mean, I think it was about, like, for us, it was about a 40% reduction. But once citizens learned why you would want to have a permit, so like my family, I still buy my family permits because two reasons: state to state reciprocation. If we travel out of state, I want to make sure they have their permits because you're required to, and going on school grounds. So if I go, my wife or my mom, my dad, whoever goes to let's say, pick up my kids from school or go on school grounds and there's a pistol in the car, then you're required to have a permit. So once people know and start getting educated to those things, then most people are very good to support the sheriff's office. But it didn't really have a negative impact on us and our organization. And to me, our Second Amendment right is one of the most important rights we have. And so I don't think you should be taxed for that right.
So, one of the arguments that I remember they was making was officer safety, but I kind of found that to be like a weak argument because people like me, who has a permit, they're not really worried about me. I mean, the guys who don't have the permit, I mean, the murderer or the rapist, they're not going to get one anyway.
No, that's right. Bad guys are going to be bad guys. They're going to do bad things. And whether they have a permit or not, it's not going to stop them from doing bad things. The only thing that stops bad people from doing bad things is good people that do the right thing.
Sheriff, the national overdose rate has been cut in half here, based on last year versus 2 years ago. How much of that do you think was Trump getting in there and shutting some of the excessive crossings of the border down? Are y'all
I,
experiencing any of that in Cullman County?
Now we do. I think shutting the border down and the flow of narcotics into our country uh, was huge when President Trump was elected because he stopped it. Now, is it still coming in? Yes, but it wasn't an. It's not an open border. In 23, when I went with the delegation from Alabama, it was just an open border. You at the Port of Hidalgo, which is where we went, we were seeing 30 to 50,000 people cross a day. I mean, it was an unlimited flow of drugs coming into the country. And when we went last year back with that same delegation, then you see them doing the job. They're checking people. They're doing the things that they're supposed to. Now, is drug cartels still getting drugs into the U.S.? Yes, but it's a lot harder under President Trump than it was Biden.
Several years ago, I mean, I never even heard of fentanyl. Is that a bigger threat now than like amphetamines or opiates?
In the rural communities, what we see is, of course, methamphetamine and fentanyl. Fentanyl, I'll give you kind of the progression through it. So starting about '09, we were seeing Oxycontin. We were seeing people getting addicted to opiates. That transitioned to heroin, and then from heroin, we've hit the fentanyl. And so you see in our communities, kind of in the rural counties, a very predominant methamphetamine use and fentanyl use, but it's that progression from opiates, from pills to heroin to fentanyl.
Um, Sheriff, we've had a big debate in the legislature. Do we need to address the prison overcrowding by building more prisons and creating more prison space to keep more people locked up? Or do we need to deal with the capacity issue by getting people out of the prisons and back into the community? If I know we have a few years ago, we had a big, I guess, sentencing reform deal. And so we had lesser sentences and more community corrections. Did that result in more crime in the local communities, or was this just hyperbolic debate here in Montgomery?
Now, it did. It created more crimes in the community. So, like today, let's just take drugs. It takes about 5 or 6 felony convictions on drugs before someone ever gets sentenced to prison. And with the reduction on what they call violent crimes, like burglary, they'll say burglaries are not violent crimes. Well, me and if you come and kick my door in, that's a violent crime. I mean, you come kick my door in, I'm going to shoot you out the door because, if I'm in my recliner and you kick it in, that's a violent crime. But the legislator, they made that where it's not considered a violent crime. So we're seeing more of those being released day in and day out. Running a detention facility like I do, I mean, I've got 440 inmates. A lot of times we will transport them to prison. I remember in one specific case, we left on a Friday for that person going to prison. Sunday, that person was back at the county jail wanting to ride home. And that is just ridiculous and uncalled for on what it's doing to our communities. Another issue we had, and it was a guy that was a sex offender, was in prison. This law passed because he was in there on probation revocation. They said that was nonviolent. He was released, and within 24 hours of being released, he committed a murder in our community and killed a citizen.
Mm. Somebody said, Sheriff, you said that about 4 or 5 drug convictions. So, it, I don't. I often wonder this: if we have somebody who is an addict who keeps getting caught with drugs, and I mean they're not committing any other crimes, is prison the right place for them?
So the good thing and the things that are in place today, let's say our jail. I've got 33 programs that operate within our facility to help people overcome addiction and to change their lives. We even run a work release program, which is very successful to help people. So today, on your first or second or even third or fourth time you get caught, there's so many programs in place that if you want to beat drug addiction, then you can. And those things are in place to make people successful. Now, whether they use it or not is up to them. My sister works for a rehabilitation center. It's a long leaf recovery center. They're building a new facility down in Shelby County, but they have a treatment facility, and they recruit and help addicts every day. You know, whether it's drug addiction or alcohol, they're working to make people successful. But you see that in our jails today. There's programs. The courts have programs. When we have things called Veterans Court, if you get caught and you're a veteran, you can go through Veterans Court. You can do drug court. You have diversion. You have all these programs in place to help you before you ever get to the point of going to prison.
Okay.
Getting back to the PSC issues, I know the PSC has some authority over the railroads, but a lot of that regulatory authority rests with the federal government. We have an issue in Moody where, we have a train track runs through the town, comes from Leeds, goes to Moody, heads on to Pell City. And the train drivers, they are only supposed to work so many hours. And so they'll park that puppy on the train tracks, blocking roads in Moody. We actually had a case where, the paramedics had to go to somebody's house, and the family drove them to the train tracks, and the paramedics carried the person on a litter underneath the rail car to load onto the ambulance so they could go get the care that they needed. Is things like the train stopping and blocking roads an issue the PSC can deal with, or is that purely federal?
So that would be federal. The PSC deals with mainly the rail inspections and the crossing inspections. But I do believe that as a public service commissioner, it's kind of like a sheriff. There's things that we deal with and things that we don't deal with, but you have a voice to people with it. And I think if that issue in Moody, which is, I've actually heard about that one other time, I do believe if the public service commissioner calls the railroad and talks to the company, I do think you could have some voice to say, look, you're hurting our citizens by blocking these roads and these crossings. We don't need to do that.
Hey, Sheriff. So, I was thinking about this the other day. I've got a Rottweiler, and I noticed that they don't ever use those in police work anymore. How come?
No. So we don't have bite dogs at the sheriff's office here in Cullman. I think I've got 9 or 10 dogs currently. We use Belgian Malinois for our drug detection,
Uh,
and our tracking dogs are bloodhounds. We don't have any bite dogs. So we use bloodhounds for tracking, Belgian Malinois for our drug detection. They're very hyper, small. They can fit into small crevices in a vehicle or around. And then I have a bomb dog it's a special type of bird dog that's a bomb dog. But I'm like you. I got a Rottweiler, but I don't think she would do too good as a drug detection dog. All she detects is biscuits. That's what she likes. So, but one thing too with the bigger dogs like the Rottweilers and those kind of things is they're so big and muscular that they're not as mobile uh, as the Belgian Malinois that are smaller and hyper. Those dogs have a longer endurance than sometimes like a Rottweiler or something would.
Um, I was at the Moody grand opening, ribbon cutting of the new high school, and I noticed while I was there, the law enforcement was using drones, as to monitor the crowd and do security work. How have law enforcement, I know maybe Cullman hasn't, integrated drones? I guess that would be good on like a manhunt or that sort of thing too, into policing.
So we do have drones. I just got my second drone here. Well, it's been about a year ago, and I knew that we needed drones when we were on a manhunt. The guy was armed, and we were in some cutover, and I was sending my deputies and my canines in to try to find this guy. And it hit me. I was like, this has been several years ago. I said, we have to be smarter than that in law enforcement. And so I got on the phone that day and called and ordered a drone because in my mind I was like, why am I sending those guys in especially in a cutover in an unknown environment where, let's just say this, anybody with the right tactical training, military training, I mean, you have the advantage to kill people if you wanted to, and so we've used those drones I mean, hundreds of times now since we've had them. Even we had, I got a call from Winston County. There was I believe it was Double Springs, Double Springs or Hannibal had an officer shot. They chased the bad guy. The bad guy wrecked, and he was held up in a vehicle on the side of the road. And I sent my guys over with our drone, and we could fly up to the window and see the guy, see his weapon, and we didn't have to send our guys down, and we could actually talk to him through the drone. It worked out. We were able to get the bad guy and get him into custody, but really that drone allowed us to do that. So for me, even my deputies on patrol, my canines and my patrol supervisors have handheld thermals, and we've used it a lot at night, chasing suspects in the woods. I mean, Cullman County is still a rural community, and so those handheld thermals and our drones have been a very successful tool in locating subjects and bad guys.
Sheriff, and I don't want to, if I ask you something, I don't want to jeopardize any type of like investigations or
Sure.
anything, but I love watching. I think we talked about this the other night. Chris Hansen and his shows. Does
Hmm.
police departments are they putting out more of these like units where they're specifically trying to track these child predators online?
Sure. Yes, we do. So I've got more investigators today than we've ever had that works these crimes against persons or these child sex crimes. And I see you got your baby with you. So,
Yeah.
uh, but we work with those organizations like Chris Hansen. We work with Jared Hudson and his organizations, and we do that because we want to get these sex offenders off the street. We want to get these criminals that are profiling our children, and that's top priority. I don't know if you noticed and saw on the news last week, we had a conviction last week, and myself and the district attorney, Champ Crocker, gave a press conference. We had an individual that had been abusing children for years, and he got 325 years in prison, longest sentence that I know of in Cullman County.
Sheriff, getting back into the policing thing, Birmingham got money from the legislature and approval and whatnot, some federal grant funds to set up a system of cameras where there's cameras and there's like a central unit that, monitors all of these major intersections and public events and all that. Are you concerned that we might be going too far with the cameras and the surveillance state? And I can understand why Birmingham would be the place to do it,
Sure, sure.
but are we running into um, you know, privacy concern issues here?
You always have to watch with government. You don't want government to start invading people's privacy. I mean, we've noticed over the years everything you see with wiretaps and all those kind of things. We don't have any kind of system in Cullman like you're talking about. Now we do have flock cameras in Cullman. I think you see across the nation, state of Alabama, these flock cameras that capture tag numbers and those kind of things. And see, and those things have been utilized for years across the U.S. They're hitting more now in Alabama and these other areas, but they've been out west for years. And they'll do drug detection as far as you can flag, what we call drug mules that are coming in from the border here. But we've also used it on a few cases in Cullman where we had an armed robbery of a bank. We were able to trap the tag number on the suspect who ended up getting caught down in Chilton County, and I think was in maybe even a shootout with law enforcement down there. And also, we had a group that were committing burglaries on Tri-Green, our tractor companies, and we were able to capture their tag and arrest them in Texas, utilizing flock and working with the Texas Rangers. And this group was hitting businesses all over the southeast U.S. But those go in a data, like not just a normal person. It's not being completely monitored. Not just a normal person can see those. It has to be very detailed and specific what you're asking for.
How do you see AI being integrated to help in law enforcement?
I think AI will help in a lot of issues in law enforcement, but then also I think it's going to hurt law enforcement a lot because with AI, citizens can get in and generate stuff also. So I think there's positives and negatives to it. The positives I've seen is on scenes where it will detect maybe if you're looking for a suspect, bad guy, weapon, those kind of things. But technology is good, but too much technology is bad for law enforcement sometimes.
I don't want to get into a sore subject, but I did cover this story when it happened. In Hansville, about 4 years ago, one of the dispatchers overdosed off of
Mhm.
drugs that were in like the Hansville Police Department locker room, and then subsequent investigations indicted several members of the Hansville Police Department,
Yes,
using drugs, selling drugs. I mean, they were selling drugs that were out of the evidence locker. I don't know how much, I know
sure.
I get when things are indicted, does that necessarily turn around to being convictions? What was the status there and how did that turn out?
So those cases are still pending. When that happened, of course, I was standing up with the DA and the district attorney. This is what most people don't understand about law enforcement. Good law enforcement hate bad law enforcement because 98%, 99% of law enforcement do what's right. That 1% hurts us in huge magnitude, just like with what you saw at Hansville. Uh, those cases are still pending. The district attorney is very adamant about the prosecution of those cases. When that happened, my deputies immediately took over Hansville. They're dispatching jail. We do everything now in Hansville, and I'm currently negotiating a contract with the new mayor and the city of Hansville on providing deputies down there until they get to a point where they decide, yes, we're going to have a police department, or no, we're not. We're just going to keep retaining deputies to be down in our area.
Hey, Sheriff, so I had a friend whose brother got arrested several years ago for trafficking amphetamines. And right now, the case is moving to the court system, but his lawyers now filed a motion to suppress because he said it was illegal traffic or illegal search because during the search, it was during the winter. And I think the guy said he had his heat on and he had a little bit of sweat on his forehead. What exactly constitutes probable cause? Is that probable cause for a search?
So it could give you reasonable suspicion that somebody is under the influence of a stimulant. You know, there's a lot of indicators that somebody could be on a depressant or a stimulant. Of course, meth is a stimulant, and of course, profuse sweating, um, pupils, heart rate. I mean, all of those things put together could give you reasonable suspicion to continue further. It doesn't give you the necessary ability to do a search, but it does give you reasonable suspicion to believe that the person may be under the influence of some type of narcotic. The search would have to be further, whether it was you see something in plain view, you get a canine detection. There's a lot of different factors that could go into play on how you get to the search itself. So you could see different avenues, but there is under the law the ability to look at reasonable suspicion to believe that the person is committing a crime, which could be under the influence or even a burglary or theft. It's kind of like stopping somebody and seeing specific, tools in their vehicle that may be used to commit burglaries. Now, it doesn't mean that they're a thief. It just means that is reasonable suspicion to believe that they could be engaging in those actions.
On another PSC related issue, the we have a bunch of pipelines that cross the state, and theoretically, it's a potential like mass, issue, if let's say something were to go wrong and the pipeline rupture and oil or gas is leaked and God forbid it ignite. Um, what exactly does the PSC do to make sure that the pipeline companies that work in Alabama are properly maintaining those lines?
So what they do is the inspections on the natural gas lines. And so they've got to make sure that the appropriate piping is being used so they don't have leaks and the safeties, and they do the inspections on them when they're put in the ground.
Sheriff, we've had you almost 45 minutes, and I know you're a busy man. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I think that's all the questions I got, unless Brandon's got some more.
Sure.
No, thank you for being on, Sheriff. And your election for the public is May 19th, and you're
Yes.
running for Public Service Commission place one.
One. Yes.
Okay.
Matt Gentry. And again, I tell everybody you can come follow me on Facebook, social media, Matt Gentry for Public Service Commission place one, and see where we're traveling across the state. This week we'll be very busy. I'll be from North Alabama to South Alabama this week. So it'll be a great week on the campaign trail.
You plan on stopping in Blount County anytime soon?
I'm sure I'll be over that way soon. We'll have to keep Mark Moon straight over there. So
yeah, I think I've already bumped into you in Etowah County and Jefferson. I was Vestavia, I think the latest. Yeah, a few other places.
Yeah, I tell them as long as I got fuel, my truck will drive. So we'll keep going.
Okay, well, shoot me a text night when you come over here, and I'll come out and see you.
Hey, sounds good. I appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, thanks a lot, Sheriff. I'll get this loaded up to YouTube later, and I'll tag you in it. And good luck in your election.
Thank you so much. See y'all.
Bye.